right, Jim and Pastor, I prepared this preparation for you last night. I wanted to get into the weeds a little bit with this and hope that this enhances the quick affordability and the total project budget worksheets that I gave you last time that, Jim, you were working through. So we're going to approach this from a little different way, and you're going to have to probably watch this more than once and take some notes to kind of sort through everything I'm going to show you. But it's intended to walk your church through the planning stage so that we're ready to select that design build team who will do the master planning and then the construction drawings and then construct, build your first building on your property. This has to be an exciting time for you guys. And I am excited for you. And I believe that this one little video will provide you with both some help in understanding cost and what's involved in it, and how to plan for the cost and how to pay for the building. And it also will bring about encouragement. But most every project I've ever worked on for 35 years has had to bring what the church wished or wanted to build, had to bring it in line with their wallet. So your wish list and your wallet's capability usually don't match. In your case is no different. It's just the nature of the beast. So part of our role as leaders in this process is to figure out God's mind on the matter about bringing your project and what you need that is mission critical for the future ministry of your church to be able to get it designed and built and furnished and then maintain it, to do all that within your budget. And there are two budgets to consider. Hear me, this is important. One is the design and construction of your building, that budget, which we've dealt with primarily. The second budget is your general fund budget, where you're going to have a maintenance line item in your budget that is going to be money that will be used to clean, insure, and repair and maintain your campus, both the facilities and the grounds. So we need to be counting the cost, both for the design and construction, and then counting the cost for the maintenance of the building. Of course, another line item, if you borrow money, is you've got interest and principal to pay back. All right, so as you can see here, I've titled this, Preparing to Design and Build Grace Life Baptist Church. So let me take you through, first off, the building scope exercise. So first thing we're going to look at, and we've talked about auditorium seating, and the number that we have talked about are 300 seats. The rule of thumb, and that's all it is, it's a rule of thumb for a planning stage just like what we're in. This is what we're supposed to be doing today, is 15 square feet per seat. 300 times 15 is 4,500 square feet. Next, you've got to have some lobby space. By the way, that 15 square feet per person will be for your stage and probably your sound area and maybe even some restroom space. And then you've got to have your lobby space. But 15 square feet per person, that's a generous number, because you're not going to have a full-blown choir and orchestra on the stage. You're going to have your praise group who is on stage, and it may be 7 to 14 inches high, and the chairs around it in a fan shaped. So as we go through this, there's right off more square footage allotted to the 300 seats than you might need. So that's one area to reduce the cost. Second thing is lobby space. The rule of thumb, and it's just one rule and you have to pick which one you're going to follow, is 1/3 of the auditorium space, which would be 1/3 of 4,500, is 1,500 square feet. Then you've got your nursery in your kid space, your children's space. And I just picked this. And here's another way to reduce the cost. But I chose to pick 30 square feet per child. So you'll know for newborns through toddlers, it's 35 square feet per child. For preschool, K4 and 5, maybe first grade, it's 30 square feet. For second, third, and fourth grades, it's 25 square feet, all the way up to middle school. When you get to middle school and up into adults, it's 15 square feet per person. So I just picked 70 kids. Just out of the blue, I just picked it because I don't have your programming information yet. So 300 seats in the auditorium, a fourth of that would be children. So you could have, theoretically, 370 people on your campus at one time in this building. Packed, every seat filled in the kid space and in the auditorium space. Then you probably want to have some administration space. And I picked 3 spaces, one for the senior pastor, and then one for an associate, and then one for a secretary. So the rule of thumb, and it's arguable, but somebody's got to make these things up, is a half of administrative support, a half a secretary for every pastor. If you have 2 with 300 people, which is not out of line at all, you could make this bigger. You could have 4 spaces, and this could quickly turn into 1,600 square feet instead of 600. But that's what I put in there. You'll be able to take this, because this PowerPoint, you can work right in it, change the numbers, do the new math, and plug them in there. Because I see us at some point taking this to the building committee, and then they're going to massage this type of exercise over and over and over again until we hammer out exactly what you're going to build and exactly what it's going to cost and how much the building is going to do for you. So as I think through the administrative space, if you have up to 300 people, 1 pastor per every 100 people, you'd look at 3 pastors, and that'd be 2, a full-time secretary and a part-time secretary, if that's how you want to staff your church, and you don't have to do it that way. All right, you got it. Auditorium, lobby, kid space, administrative. The total dedicated square footage, when you add all of those up, is 8,700 square feet. 8,700 square feet. We were originally talking about 10,000 square feet, but as you can see, if you could afford 8,700 square feet and everything that goes with it, it's going to take care of 300 people, 70 kids, 1,500 square foot. That's a good size house in an open lobby space. And then at least 600 square foot of administrative space for you to have several offices and maybe a sitting area. All right. Just so you know, my first office in Emmanuel was 10 by 10. That allowed me 2 sitting chairs, a desk, and a bookshelf or 2, and a desk chair, and a window, and 2 doors coming in that little space. But it worked. So you can massage all of this to work. We've got a lot of work to do to get this ready to go, but this is the front end of it. Now, I want to continue the building scope exercise, and we've said that your dedicated square footage, according to this exercise, is 8,700 square feet. Then you're going to need, along with that, some circulation, mechanical, and storage. Now, the rule of thumb is 20% of the dedicated square footage. 20% of 8,700 is 1,740. When you add those 2 together, your total facility square footage is 10,440. We were pretty close when we were guessing 10,000 square feet to get started. I still think that we're going to need to be back toward the 8,700 for the total facility square footage. But we'll see. We'll see. And that's where, when we get the industry professionals in, the design build team, they're going to give you options of how to keep the square footage and bring it within your financial capabilities. And I believe there's good reason to be encouraged. Now, we're going to go from the building, from the structure, to the site. And so here's a site scope exercise. And the first thing we want you to look at, the building square footage is 10,440. Parking lot square footage, I'm going to show you how I got that number. So I'm a good mathematician. I'm going to show you how I got my number. 300 seats with 2 people per car. It's why I ask you to count the people in the cars. Because if you have on average 3.2 people per car, it's going to reduce the cost of your site work. But by rule of thumb, you're looking at 150 spaces. 150 spaces times 1 parking space per car, 200 square foot, 10 by 20, that's 30,000 square feet. Now you've got to have aisles. 150 times 10 by 12, or 120 square feet, is 18,000 square feet. Then you've got to have entrance and exits. All right. It's usually 20% of the total space of the aisles and the parking. So 20% of 30,018 is 9,600. I think that's how I came to that number. But you can do the math. All right. Double check mine if you would. Now, you've got, along with parking, you've got to have stormwater retention and detention. The rule of thumb and is 25% of the hard surface. Hard surface space is this: the parking lot square footage of 57,600 and the building square footage of 10,440 is 68,040. 25% of that is 17,010. Okay, it's a lot of square footage. Then you've got to have buffer and green space. And I say every, that's probably not correct. I have found the regular routine is to have impervious ratios for the development of land under each zoning code. So you may get some property that has a 50% impervious code, meaning you cannot hard surface with shingles and asphalt, sidewalks, anything that keeps the water from penetrating into the earth. You can't cover more than 50% of the property. I don't know what yours is. I don't remember. But the green space, as a rule of thumb, is 25%. So you're looking at 17,000 square feet. All right. So we're just going to get a grasp here by more specific numbers, what it's going to take care of a 300-seat auditorium with a 1,500-seat foyer and a children's space, of 2,100 and administration space. So what's it going to take care of a 300-seat assembly area? Well, you're looking at it. All right. This is what it's going to do. We're going to continue with this. So your total property needs, the square footage, when you add all those numbers up that I gave you back here, it comes out to be 102,060 feet, 102,060 feet. So what does that mean for your acreage? How many acres do you need to make this happen? Well, you need 2.35 acres. You happen to have 7. But let me give you something that about came out of my chair when I went through this exercise, and that is you take 3 times the 2.35 for future expansion, it comes out to 7 acres. God directed you to buy that level piece of ground on a nice road in a rectangle shape, not odd shaped, 7 acres, allows you even more than the rule of thumb for future expansion. You can dream a little, is what this means. And then you didn't buy too little of land. For what you're going to do, worship and education on your site, you've got land to do that. All right, now we're going to talk about the budget exercise. And here's how it's going to look. We're going to take the building cost. That's the first thing we're going to look at, is the cost of the structure, the 10,040 square feet. We talked about $140 per square feet. Now, I didn't want to make this complicated, but probably as we get further into this and we get to talking to the builders, they're going to give us, if you build this kind of building, it's going to be $120 a square foot. And if you build this kind of building, it's going to be $160. But the truth of the matter is, for the Houston area where you are, we won't know that until we get the guys who build there every day, who know what everything costs and where the costs are headed. All right. So just to get the 10,000, you're looking at 1.461 at 140 square feet, dollars per square foot. Then the rule of thumb for AVL and furniture, fixtures, equipment is 30% of the building cost. That's high, but that's the rule of thumb. So that's $438,000. I like to fell down when I saw it, except I was sitting down when I was working on it. Then you've got the general site work. The general site work, you've got your building, your parking, and your drainage. You've got to get all that ready to go. Remember the 102,060, that's times 3 for gravel and grading, drainage, so forth. Times $3, that's $306,000, and then you've got to pave it. Is $231,000. Again, these are numbers as a rule of thumb that we're plugging in to give us an idea of what we're facing and whether we're within budget or do we need to find a way to creatively reduce the cost of the project. And you can. Now, we want to continue this, and we want to talk about 2 other things that you are probably going to be required to put in here. One of them is landscaping. I put $50,000 in there. Trees, bushes, mulch, any number of other things that may need to be a part of the landscaping. You really have to check the ordinances, and the design build team, they will check the ordinances because they're designing it and building it, and so they have to do that. The second thing is utilities and impact fees. Again, we check the ordinances, but to plug in a number, I put $50,000 in there. So when you add all of this up for the cost of building, site work, furniture, fixtures, equipment, and AVL, audio-visual lighting, it comes to $2,537,380. This is first run through for us as a team, following rules of thumb for what buildings really cost nationally. All right. So now I'm about to encourage you. Well, in just a moment. Do we have that much money? Well, here's the total projected project budget, and I did this so you could see it all on one sheet. The building cost, the AVL and fixture, furnitures, and equipment, the building, parking, and drainage, paving, landscaping, utilities and impact fees. Impact fees may be studies that the city had to do to determine whether or not you had to put in an deacceleration, acceleration, and turning lanes, or the impact on the environment, or the impact on water drainage, or the traffic flow. I mean, they're impact fees. They sometimes can charge you money to help pay for your portion of fixing the roads or improving the roads or the drainage, sewer, water. All right, we can talk about that later, but there can be a number of things that fit in there. They may charge you for bringing utilities to the building. Water, sewer, electric, gas, and anything else that's a utility. So the total projected budget, as we said, is 2.5. Now, let's look at the finances. Your financial feasibility exercise, here's the first thing. Now, I know we talked about not borrowing money, but for rule of thumb, I'm going to put it in here. We're going to talk about it. I also know you said the giving was on track to be 170, not 190. But I just used the low end. If you were going to go borrow money today, in today's environment financially, you can borrow 3 times your annual budget. But I just put 2, which is 380,000. Then we talked about a capital campaign. Rule of thumb is 2 times. Some guys say 3. I don't think that's safe to do, and you can see why. 190,000 annual budget times 2 is 380. And then a number that we play with, but we really may not know, and Alan Wilds may be better able, he is better able to answer this than me. You're going to collect on the commitments. So if 70%, if you collect 70% of your commitments, you would collect 266,000, not 380. In my campaigns that I've worked with, the number has been closer to 90, and I could be mistaken about that, but that's what I understand. So if you collect 90% of your commitments, it's closer to 330 instead of 266. Again, all of this is just for us to get a grasp on the reality of where are we. Now, money in the building fund, you've got 1.1. So when you add up the loan 380, the capital campaign 266, and the money in the bank 1.1, it means that your current available funds, if you borrow money, do a capital campaign with a consultant, and don't spend your money that's in the building fund, is 1.7 and a half. All right. So we have to do a little reconciliation here. So here's a summary. The total projected project as we have set it up, 300 seats, 70 kids, landscaping, drainage, office administration, the building and the grounds and the furniture, fixtures and equipment, and the audio visual lighting is 22.5 million, just north of that. Your available building fund is 1.7 and a half. So you've got a projected shortfall of $791,000. And you say, Marshall, how is this project going to work? Well, last night I just took one option, and it's an easy one to do, but it may not taste good, but there are multiple ways to bring this project within your 1.7 or lower if need be, and get you on the property in a nice building with paved parking, paved entrance, landscaping, audiovisual and lighting, and your furniture, fixtures, and equipment, get you into a building that you can worship in and allow you to grow your church and then multi-services as you grow. And here's the first way. Okay, here's the first way to bring the project that we're looking at. What could you do? And there's something very easy you can do. And you're not going to like it, Pastor, but it's an easy one to do the math on. And that is shrink the seating from 200 to 300. That's really, that should be backwards. It should say from 300 to 200, but we'll fix it. All right. That means that the whole project, everything we have mentioned, that's a 34% decrease in your cost. Your funding capability is 1.7 and a half. The adjusted cost, I just took 34% out of the 2.5 million, and it's 1.6, almost 1.7. So here's the difference. Now instead of having a deficit, you've got a surplus. And when I looked at that, I went, that's interesting. If we use the difference as your contingency fund, which is 4% of the adjusted total project budget, which is right in the middle of 3 to 5% contingency, gives you $71,000 of contingency money, which is money you set aside, and you have to set it aside for unplanned, unforeseen, unexpected expenditures. Just by decreasing it from 300 seats to 200 seats, or 34%, 33 something, but 34%, all of a sudden you're within your funding capability. You're not borrowing everything you could borrow. You're not planning to raise everything you could raise. And you've got a lot of money in the bank for a church with your size and your age. This is pretty encouraging that you could have this opportunity to get on the property. Now, there are all these areas that you can reduce costs. Do the landscaping yourself. Buy used audiovisual lighting, buy used furniture you already possess, only buy what you have, and then buy more as you collect money to buy more chairs. Reduce the size of your lobby. You can build a Chevrolet instead of a Buick. Remember we talked about Chevy, Buick, Cadillac? You could build one part Cadillac and the rest of it Chevy. So as you look at all of this project, as I look at it, my judgment call is this project is doable. You have a good opportunity here, a good shot. I can see a clear pathway to you being able to make this happen. All right, you're probably going to need to go through this, take a blank sheet of paper and collect your thoughts and format this in a way that helps you. And may I recommend you take the total affordability exercise I gave you and just fill in the numbers into it. So you'll have this formatted in two ways. You'll have it formatted in two ways. All right, I trust this has been helpful. Just to remind you, I'm Marshall Shannon, a coach and a navigator with those two websites. So you're welcome to yell at me. Next Wednesday. So your homework assignment, send me all the pictures you took, the photos of the church you visited today, and send me all of your notes. What did you like and what did you not like? Why am I saying that? You know, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and if we can show the design build team what you like and what you don't like and what's priority to you, and they can see it and they can begin estimating the cost of what they see, that's going to help everyone. Fair enough? At least that's my thinking. So you can give me your thoughts. You can rip this presentation apart next week, or we can take it and replace numbers, or you can do that between now and next Wednesday. Go back in it. It's a working document. Change the numbers, the rules of thumb, the size, delete, add, and keep massaging this, because when we do get that design build team, we want to be as prepared as we possibly can to answer all their questions and to give them the info. All right, good enough? I'm sure there's something I'm forgetting, but you can email me and we'll plan to talk next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central Time. Thanks, guys.